What if you were Origen, would you choose Rek'Sai?
I'd probably use it as a counter pick.
Oh!
Someone that I like to counter pick for would be Nukeduck.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, given something strong against Pirean in the mid lane. We are back on into picks and bans. SK on the blue have banned out Draven, Lucian the second ban, and Kalista to follow from SK. So lots of AD carries getting removed from the pool early on.
And Kalista has really started to crop up. It seems like everyone was watching the SK versus Griffin storyline. Maybe they've been scrimming it for a long time, but she is getting so much respect today.
That she is, and Patrik was the first player to bring it out in the LEC as well. So not really too surprised to see it come up against Origen. Lissandra taken away, Karthus taken away as well. And means that we're looking at things, you know, Jayce, Jarvan's still available here.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those two. Now, we've seen teams usually give away the Jarvan and then take the Sejuani so they can kind of match that scaling utility potential as well as early gank access. Both these champions do similar things, but this time around, you know, the gauntlet is thrown down. Do you take the Jayce? And if you leave Jayce open, clearly Alphari has something to counter it.
I mean, when we've seen Werlyb have strong performances as well, it's been on more tanky top laners, you know, the Sion, the Poppy, that's where he's getting his win.
And this is playing chicken. This is saying, do you play the Jayce? Because if you don't, you know that it can be flexed between multiple positions on the side of Origen.
Well, Jayce will be locked in for SK, so the gauntlet has been laid down, it's been picked up by SK, and immediate response is the LeBlanc for Nukeduck in the mid lane. No counter picks here, just going for that very strong, powerful assassin mid laner. Alongside it, the Rek'Sai for Kold.
And because of the Lissandra ban, it basically blows open the door for LeBlanc to just take over a game. She doesn't have a lot of champions that can deal with her in the mid lane now. If Pirean wants to be super safe, maybe he goes towards something like the Oriana and just tries to survive the lane. It's also been kind of his comfort pick that he's gone back to.
A matchup I'm not incredibly familiar with is the Corki matchup as well.
Hexdrinker.
Hexdrinker seems to be pretty strong, so we have seen Pirean play Corki already once this split. One of the wins that SK got was on that Corki as well.
And if he does want to pick it up, it'd have to be here, because you have to think, if you're really concerned about Nukeduck's matchup, you could ban it in second phase. So we'll see, do we prioritize bot lane? Do we try to get Pirean a matchup that he knows he's going into?
Well, that is what is going through SK's mind at the moment, and they are going to go instead towards the Gragas. That's going to be jungle Gragas. You have to think maybe the Jayce is even being taken in mid into this LeBlanc match.
And it feels like with that type of setup, you're looking at a possible Yasuo pickup. So I would expect it to be banned in second rotation here from Origen. It works so well with the Gragas cask.
It definitely does. And Yorick going to be locked in straight away for Origen. So that's the top side of the map secured for them. They're actually keeping that counter pick down towards the bottom side. It's still a counter pick, of course, but an AD carry counter, maybe Cassiopeia still on the cards here as well if they want to take that.
I'm actually just very surprised that they would wait this long to get firepower into the top side, into the bot side. Tells me that Origen just feel confident enough playing their side lane pressure with Yorick and LeBlanc. They're just like, these are the champions that we want. This is the playstyle that we're doing today. We're not about playing reactive today. We're about, this is our set game plan, and we're going to make sure that we get the pieces to execute it.
Well, with the Thresh ban, I think Origen probably looking towards another mid lane ban. Is the Syndra coming out here? A good matchup into the LeBlanc, but Corki's still available for SK. Maybe Origen saying, we don't think that Jayce is going top. We think it's going mid instead.
Pirean's got a wealth of options that he can look towards. Corki, Oriana, Yasuo if he really wants to.
And we'll keep our eyes on that. SK going to get rid of another support in the form of Galio. If I'm Mithy here, I'm thinking, you know, Alistar's still pretty good. Tahm Kench is okay as well. Even the Morgana, if you want it into that Braum matchup, is a pretty strong pick, and it's all champions Mithy has been relatively comfortable on.
I'd like something like a Morgana, I think. Kind of really depends on what Patrik's pickup is going to be. It feels like they might not reveal it yet.
Yeah, I think you want a counter pick, right? That is where I would go for the final pick. It is going to be the Tahm Kench, and Crownshot immediately hovers over the Ezreal.
Do you think it's going to be something fun like the Nico?
See, now you put it in my mind, I can't think of anything else. I've got a one-track mind, Frosk, and as soon as you say Nico, I say, ooh, Pop Blossom, down towards that bottom lane. It's a possibility. I wonder how it would work into something like the Ezreal. Ezreal seems a relatively safe AD carry in that matchup, and Nico very much about getting those 3 empowered auto attacks off so that you get the passive on your shape splitter, the extra little burst of magic damage.
I mean, talking backstage with VODS, we've just been trying to theorycraft Nico, waiting for it to pop up. We've seen a couple of bans here and there, and he feels strongly that you could just blind pick the Nico
Okay.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to wait until last pick to bring this one out.
Well, if I'm looking at the rest of the picks for Patrik, there's no Draven. Ezreal's taken away from him. No Kalista, no Lucian. Sivir, Kog'Maw, Tristana are the other 3 AD carries he's played this split. We are going to see Werlyb get a strong top lane in the form of the renekton, which means that Jayce has always been going towards the mid and will be matching up into the LeBlanc. And I will admit, Sivir would be a lot more disappointing than a Nico pick here, but good scaling proponents on the side of Origen means that the Sivir fits relatively nicely into their team composition.
And it makes it really easy for to buy time for Alphari to play a side lane when you have a champion like Sivir, because you can just park her wherever you need that wave clear to be. More often than not, it is in the mid lane. And in tandem with Tahm Kench, what are you supposed to do there? How do you ever engage on it?
You're never going to be able to kill that lane. So what we think is Origen going to play up towards that top side through the Yorick, split pushing through Nukeduck on this LeBlanc as well. SK tried to get an answer with the Gragas and the renekton. Gives them quite a lot of power up towards top. Don't really expect either of these teams to focus much of their early game down towards the bottom side.
Yeah, so again, all eyes for me are always going to be on Kold and Selfmade. Anytime SK and Origen clash here, these junglers are both high impact players. Kold with Rek'Sai is fairly interesting because the last time he pulled out this champion, it was against Vitality, and all Kold did was he just kept the river warded. And he just said, you know, Vitality, they love to gank early. Mowgli's a very aggressive jungler, and all I need to do is track this guy. And my lanes are experienced enough that they'll walk away with the game. And I feel it's a very similar pattern of play here. You know, Kold, he just needs to watch Selfmade. Doesn't need to interact with him. Just make sure that he doesn't get a chance to impact these lanes.
Jumping into the third game of the day. It's a very vital one for both these teams. SK want to distinguish themselves from those teams sitting around the bottom of the playoff mark, sitting in that 6th spot. Origen, on the other hand, have been quietly rumbling, quietly working their way towards 2nd place, and a win here would put them in very good stead, actually equalizing their wins with Vitality, with Splice at that 9-win point. So for both these teams, a vital matchup. The question is, who will come out as the victor? We jump onto the Summoner's Rift for the 3rd game today in the LEC. Here we go.
Crowd's live today.
They're pretty hyped. I can't blame them. Like we are 18 games away from the end of the first ever LEC split, and still, we only have 3 teams locked in or out of playoffs.
And one of the teams that does have a lead on kind of their playoff position is Origen. You know, when we're talking about the stakes for this game, it feels like it should mean a lot more for SK because their destiny really hasn't been decided or locked in stone. And it's kind of an interesting cocktail that you have all of these things. You know, SK, legacy organization, very young, inexperienced roster with so much pressure behind them, and probably one of the hardest games that they'll face. It's hard to compete with this hype.
They're pretty hyped. Can't blame them. Origen fans coming out of the woodwork. Wonder where they were in the first few weeks when Origen went 1-4.
Suddenly, you guys were real quiet those first few weeks for Origen.
Yeah, what happened?
Oh, nothing?
Probably the same place the Schalke fans have gone now.
There we go.
Let's go. So, let's talk about early jungle pathing. You said Selfmade and Kold are the ones to watch early on. Kold starting on the top side of the map, Selfmade starting down towards the bottom.
And again, just the idea of Kold on a champion like Rek'Sai, her ability to track and move through the jungle so quickly using the Tremor Sense, using her tunnels is so good at making sure that enemy junglers can't do anything. And Selfmade being on a champion like Gragas. When you see this Gragas pick in very aggressive regions that shall go unnamed, it means level 2 ganks, level 3 ganks, level 4 ganks. And that's what I really expect from Selfmade when he has so much firepower in all of these lanes. That's a renekton, that's a Jayce, anywhere on the map he wants to attack.
Of course, LeBlanc quite hard to gank early on with that distortion, so you can just jump away, but when you use that aggressively, that's when the opportune moment comes to strike. Now, Krug stun by Selfmade down towards this bottom side. Looks like he's going to go for a normal first clear. Lots of wards already coming out from Origen in the river, as you see, just trying to track where Selfmade is. And in terms of like lane strength and lane power, I think the only really winning matchup I can see across the board is that top side. You know, renekton should be able to bully out the Yorick early on, in my opinion.
I don't think it's just your opinion. I'm going to say
it. See, I said that, so if you said no, I'd be like, well, my opinion's obviously wrong then, but thank you for backing me up.
No, it's okay. Yorick, of course, still very dependent on more levels to make sure that he can take over a side lane. We have always talked about In fact, all day we've seen the renekton picked into matches that should outscale him on a side lane, and that hasn't come true yet today. And we've also seen 2 massive upsets, so I'm not ready to just discount Werlyb and SK here on this side lane renekton.
I mean, especially since SK took down G2 last week as well. Like, they're coming off a very, very high against G2 and now looking to repeat that performance against a team some people would say is the 2nd best, maybe the 3rd best in the league on current performance. I
mean, you talk to players and you talk to teams, and the response is always, Origen are terrifying. And the reality is that you see 2 games of a team a week, Saturday or Friday and Saturday, and you have to think about all of those scrim blocks and all of the percentage of play that you don't see from a team. You maybe see 5% of what a team's true capabilities are, and yeah, it needs to count on the stage. You need to pick up those wins, but I'm gonna go ahead with the teams here that are rumbling that Origen are terrifying, and if they move into a best of series, they're gonna be that much scarier due to the experience and the versatility that this team has.
Gone 7-2 in their last 9 games as well, so definitely on a run of form. And a lot of that has come through the bottom lane. You know, Patrik has had some very strong performances in the last few weeks. Kold, I mean, basically anyone on this team, you could pick them out and find 2 or 3 games where they really stepped up. But SK, last week against G2, had that stellar performance, especially from Crownshot on the Jinx. He really stepped up to the plate and was counted for his team after a lot of people had doubted him as an AD carry in the league. You know, put him bottom 5, maybe AD carries. And
specifically on Ezreal, so it's nice to see that Crownshot kind of feels like he's found his confidence on the LEC stage, going back to the Ezreal, because you keep hearing things. I was talking to Broken Shard, and Broken Shard's like, his Ezreal and scrims is amazing. We just need to translate that onto the main stage. And, you know, Jinx, Zaya, that's something that I trust Crownshot on. His Ezreal, I'm starting to warm up to it a little bit, not quite there yet, but I hear good things.
We'll keep our eyes on him. Selfmade, with the first back, has gone for the Predator boots, as you would expect on the Gragas. Maybe looking for a gank down towards this bottom side. He's going to get his Krugs first. And then there is always that opportunity for a jungle matchup.
So the pathing from Selfmade was actually red Krugs into like full clear for his jungle. He did take some time to sit in the side lane while Pirean was pushed up, if you kind of rewind your map back to that pathing. And what it does is it resets Krug timer very quickly, and Krugs is like the #1 experience camp for junglers. Typically when you have this type of pathing, it's like a rush level 6 type of pathing.
Okay.
I thought he might use it to rush level 3 and then try for like a cheesy gank, but just didn't have the opportunity in the lanes. So it's just kind of interesting from Selfmade. We'll see what he does if he does reach level 6 in a pretty timely manner.
First bit of action on the Rift.
I like that side.
The fans go wild. As Pirean and Nukeduck trade with each other.
You're not gonna play-by-play cast. He hits the distortion.
Look at that. He's hitting the minion with that cannon form. Oh, he jumps in. Oh, he jumps in though. Pirean ignited. Is it enough? No, he is level 6 of the minion dying and just about survives. The crowd obviously prophetic in their cheers there, expecting something to happen. And now Selfmade going to come in and clear the wave out here, but Nukeduck with the first little foray in that middle lane.
I think Nukeduck thought he had it, because he's sitting on flash, so he can at least trade flash for flash. He's looking at basically one auto attack, and I think Nukeduck was like, my ignite, he's got this. But I believe, what, it was a minion that died?
Minion died, level up onto Pirean as well, giving him that little bit of extra health. Well, it happens, you got to judge these things. He's a veteran mid laner. We talk about how strong he is week after week. We had amazing, extol his virtues, sing his praises. Those are the little things that count when you get down to the crunch in the LEC.
But now you are playing in a lane where you don't have the ignite, whereas Pirean still has access to both his summoner spells, so retain that flash.
Definitely did. Now, as we just scanned down towards this bottom lane, something we haven't talked about a huge amount is the push potential coming out from a Sivir. With the Ricochet, you can just push these waves relatively quickly, and you can already see the tower has taken a couple of plates worth of damage. Pirean still has the flash here. Kold going to flash in. The Jayce coming out. Pirean with the knockback. Hasn't burned his sums. And with the Hex Drinker coming out, will be so safe underneath his tower. And once again, it's a summoner burnt for nothing from Pirean.
Yeah, and I do want to point out the build, the itemization. So we talked, briefly about Corki when we did see the LeBlanc coming out. Corki, one of the answers into LeBlanc, because he can defensively itemize into the Hex Drinker early on to deny a lot of your kill pressure here. Same thing goes for Jayce, so you can see Pirean saved him right there.
Selfmade eyeing up this mid lane for a potential gank, but it's going to walk straight across the ward, and Nukeduck still has a flash, so shouldn't really be able to do too much around that mid lane. Both junglers just kind of facing off against each other. You see Kold come in for a gank, then you see Selfmade try and find an avenue of an approach, but neither one really having the impact perhaps they would like in this early game just yet.
Oh, hold on.
He's waiting for him because he knows he's going to distort in here. He's trying to bait him for another distort. Pirean going to stay around low. Hex Drinker Still no shield on that. That passive is down, but Nukeduck is forced back by the wave, and Selfmade just letting his mid laner try and act as a bait. And Nukeduck is not biting today.
Yeah, just getting a better back. So I was trying to take stock of kind of who's won this early game and what's been pretty slow. I'll hold that thought, though.
You don't need to.
He's okay.
You can drop it again.
And what I was going to say is that the plate advantage seems to have gone in favor of Origen. You were talking about kind of the push priority that Patrik had on the Sivir, and I think he's got 2 plates. Let me check. Yeah, he's got 2 plates. As
a note with the minimap, there's a big 3 on the tower that you can always have a look at if you want to see as a spectator at home. See that blue tower on the side of SK only has a 3 on it, meaning 2 plates have gone down.
Fun fact, Medic, I normally wear glasses. Yeah. You see glasses on my face?
So that's why I transitioned it from mocking you halfway through my point to advising our audience, because I remembered you usually wear glasses and didn't want to tease you for your short-sightedness.
I can't see that number, Medic.
Right, it says 3, and that's because 2 plates have already gone down. Patrik just tanking up a Mystic Shot here. Selfmade is around level 6 hit on Crownshot. Dreams just hit the 6 himself as well. Pirean coming down, trying to clear out some vision in this river. Maybe looking for a little bit of a 4-man dive down towards the bottom side, but not going to happen. Selfmade goes up again towards the river. All even 9 minutes in. Not too much to talk about.
I think that a 4-man dive would be a bit overzealous from SK at this point, especially against Tahm Kench and Sivir. I think more importantly, they were trying to get control over the river. I thought that they might transition that control into Kold's blue buff, which is actually up here. But because they don't know where Kold is, it might just be an assumption.
Another gank from Kold, and Pirean sidesteps it once again. Nukeduck jumping forth and back. But just getting the chip damage down. Pirean's done a very good job of absorbing pressure in the mid lane. And as much as you say a 4-man dive would be over-eager, I'm a play-by-play, okay? I like to talk about action. And so far, although this game has been very cerebral and has been very, you know, everyone is thinking a lot and thinking about exactly where they step, and they're trying to read each other, which is great for someone who loves to analyze League of Legends. Someone who likes talking about fights. It's not the best game so far for us.
The big win is still, though, in the analytical side of this game, which is that Origen have managed to play around priority. Every time they have priority, every time they have the assured, controlled play, they act on it. So you can see Sivir and Tahm Kench, they're rotating up. Meanwhile, Selfmade, he's trying to force something. He's getting desperate. He's fishing. He's looking for it.
Alphari pops the eulogy of the Isles.
Walking away from it.
Where he fished for it a little bit and then realized there's no lake or river up here, so there's no fish. And Alphari, with a little bit of backup from the Maiden of the Mist, is just able to force him away.
Yeah, exactly. He looked at Maiden, he's like, this isn't a 2v1, this is a 2v2. Yeah. I don't want it.
That's the major issue. Dragon goes down for Origen as well. 500 gold lead for them. Nukeduck will be given that blip.
Yeah, and that gold lead is, again, in things like the tower plates and the CS discrepancy for Nukeduck. So while he didn't get the kill on Pirean, he has made massive advantage that he's constantly forcing Pirean back at poor back timings. He's eking this CS and this experience away from him and continuing to chunk him out.
Keeps on just pushing that Jayce back out of the lane. Mithy came up here to clear some vision around the Rift Herald. 2 plates going to go down in the top lane as well for Alphari, and that is very good stuff for him. Very good news with a 10 CS lead on the Yorick. He is in a strong spot. And Origen across the board, very happy with how this early game's gone. You have about a 500 gold lead. You had the Dragon down towards the bottom side. Now you have control of the Rift Herald as well. So they are playing around where they want their strong side of the map to be and doing it perfectly.
It's a paper cut play style. Origen are just slowly whittling away at SK, making these tiny little advantages on a composition that has a lot of scaling potential in the Sivir and the Yorick. They also have good mid-game bridge points if they want to skirmish around something like a LeBlanc. So as far as Origen's game plan is concerned, they're probably like, this is totally fine. Yeah, we didn't get the kill on Nukeduck, but we are sitting very happy in everything that's happening in this game. Whereas, again, SK feel like they're getting a little bit desperate. You can see Selfmade is trying to attack the map, but he's just walking into vision every single time and not finding any sort of pressure on these ganks.
And this is how Origen have exemplified their playstyle recently. They are slow and steady. They've got the lowest combined kills a minute in their games. They have second lowest kills and deaths at the 15-minute mark.
Get Patrik!
Their gold's even. Crownshot's fine. Crownshot's fine. You were excited there. I knew he was okay. True Shot Rush comes out as well as Patrik forced away with the on the hunt. Here comes Selfmade with the Predator. Eaten up by Mithy. Mithy dodges away from the explosive cast. Still has the flash as well. Oh! The proc from the Runic Echoes gets the kill.
That was a quick turnaround from the crowd. They're like, he's out, he's safe! He wasn't safe.
I was so sure he was fine that I was talking about the graphic, never mind the fight. Origen actually going to play up towards that top side. They will look for the Rift Herald themselves. They're going to lose some plates in the bottom side, but they won't lose the tower. Too tanky at the moment for that. Kold claims the Rift Herald. There's a maiden here as well. Maybe even put the Rift Herald down. You've only got 3 plates left on that tower. You could just go for the first tower push.
Oh, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Rift Herald is spawned. You're going to get massive bang for your buck out of this push here, especially because it goes into Alphari's pocket.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of gold going into Alphari's pocket.
Look at his items. What are you supposed to do as renekton against that?
I love it. It's such a smart build path. It's such a smart pick into the renekton as well. Tower goes down in the top side as the crowd goes mild. And next up, Nukeduck looking for the play in the mid. Pirean still has the flash. Nukeduck there. Flash away from Pirean. Kold not able to get the knockup, but he's going to go in with the Void Rush. Wow, indeed. As Kold will get the kill. Origen answer back to one of their own.
And again, it felt like Origen were just sitting in their pocket. They're like, this is totally fine. We're making these incremental gold leads across the map. And suddenly that they strike. They take the Rift Herald. They have no problem trading Mithy's life across the map for that. Excuse me, Patrick's life. Not going to blame the veteran member. Going to blame the newer kid.
Oh, we could blame Mithy anyway if we really wanted to. Now, Tower's still alive down here towards the bottom side. Mithy pops the heal so he can switch over to the flash with the unsealed spellbook. Not too surprising. And across the board, Origen still pretty happy with how this game's gone, but SK should be as well. You know, you've got okay scaling in the form of the Ezreal, the Jayce. They will do a lot of damage and a lot of poke in the later portion of the game. And if you can avoid full-on team fighting Origen, you actually got a very strong composition as the game does progress.
And I want to quickly point at Origen's vision line here. Some of it has started to die out, but they did this against Vitality too. Normally you would expect a team like Origen, who seems to have like this, I'm going to say it, I hate this word, cerebral style of play, that they would force a lot of deep wards and deep vision, but they actually don't. A lot of their vision just sits in the river, and I think it's almost like a combined element of just the experience that this roster has, that they don't need perfect information to you know, maximize their play chances, that, you know, high reward, low risk play style that they like to go for. And I think that's almost only possible with a team like Origen, where the collective experience that you have for the roster is just crazy.
Nukeduck dumps back here. Kold there as well, but we've already got Sorcerer's Shoes and the Relic Runic Echoes finished on towards the Gragas. Oh! Kold dodges away.
Was it a dodge?
It was a dodge. It was a dodge. I mean, it was missed as well, but I always give the benefit of the doubt to the team that did a good thing. And that's what happened here. So Origen get tower in the bottom lane. 600 gold lead for them as well. Let's have a quick look across the items. Iceborne, Gauntlet, Mana Moon stacking up on Crownshot. Still no first completed item on Patrik, but he will be going towards the Essence Reaver.
This is my other thought with Origen's like vision that stays pretty shallow. It's that Deficio walked backstage and he was like, stop feeding before 15 minutes. No one walks into the jungle alone.
I mean, that's what used to happen in the Origen games. They have been able to stop that for the moment. Dragon goes down, it's an Inferno. Werlyb with the flank, and this is going to be a 5v5. Pirean on the wrong side of the map, though. And now Origen actually just want to back away. They're popping on the hunt. Crownshot Barrage comes out as well. You can see Werlyb's in the middle of that fight. He's doing a lot of damage, but SK just can't get the chase on. The Maiden is acting as a bouncer and stopping Origen in their tracks.
And something that is pretty cool about Origen's composition when they do want to disengage like that is the... Oh! He's dead.
Oh, he's done! Nukeduck goes in, gets out. That's another kill for Origen. Great stuff from them. They get the Dragon, second of the game, and a 1,000 gold lead.
And then you get cute little plays like that. But what I was saying is that between the Tahm Kench and the Yorick, because we expect this composition to play in 4-1, but when they do play together around objectives like that, their zone control is crazy, and their ability to disengage is pretty nuts. Because you can throw down the baby cage from Yorick, you have the giant maiden in front of you, and then you can just gobble someone up with Tahm Kench. It's actually really hard to ever lock down Origen. They can very quickly run in, grab the objective that they want, grab the tower damage they want, and then disappear into the night.
Werlyb came in with the teleport here as SK wanted to fight, but they just couldn't get onto the Origen backline.
I don't know how you actually crack Origen here. You're dealing with a hyper-mobile LeBlanc, you've got the spell shield on Sivir, you have a Tahm Kench and a Yorick. How are you ever supposed to fight into that? Which means that Pirean on this Jayce needs to be ahead of the clock so he's hitting damage, and more so needs to have that long-range poke potential. And the fact that Jayce received so much attention, was put so far down, it is sitting on, I think, a single completed item and a defensive item, really hurts SK.
I don't actually think he's completed his item. Oh no, he's gone for the Yumu's. He has just finished that one up and has the Hex Drinker as well. But that fight, just not enough stuff from SK. And Origen now putting the pedal to the metal as they push down towards this mid lane tower. Already broken tier 1s in the side lanes. Now they can just open up the map a little bit more. Feels like a 1-3-1 has started to be enacted from Origen.
I mean, let's be honest, did Origen ever put the pedal to the metal?
Okay, so they move the pedal like 2% closer to the metal.
I mean, they are starting to speed up the tempo because they can, but it's like the difference between if G2 are a Ferrari, and when they step on the gas, you really feel it. Origen are like a Prius.
They're more economical, at least, with some of their plays.
They're silent. You never hear them coming.
Silent but deadly. That's the Origen mantra across the course of the last few weeks, and they have moved that Yorick into a side lane with the Trinity Force. He's basically just impossible to deal with, even though renekton, who is such a strong early game champion, can't really get through him with that Black Cleaver. And then as well, the LeBlanc sitting an item ahead, sitting a kill ahead, is in just such a strong spot across the board.
So it feels like so much pressure and eyes have to go to Selfmade. With Jayce and renekton into these side lanes, there should never be an opportunity where they get to pick to kill someone. You know, it's going to be really hard for renekton to force Yorick to fight him. It's going to be really difficult for Pirean to force Nukeduck to fight him, and at this point, I don't think Pirean wants that. So Selfmade needs to decide, how am I going to force either the side lane or the mid lane? Like, where am I going to use this Gragas cast to get something back for SK? Because Origen can just hold them at arm's length.
Yep. Well, that's all they need to do as well. You've got a strong scaling Sivir, who will be even stronger on a couple more items. You've got the LeBlanc, who's incredibly powerful when she gets to that 2-3 item spike, can just burst people down. But SK forcing around mid, bringing everyone here, saying we want to get this tower, we need a little bit of gold in our back pockets, and they should get it pretty easily. Selfmade was around the corner as well. That's the tower down. Good stuff from SK as they strike back towards Origen.
And also great positioning. Selfmade cheating off to the side on top of the vision, looking for someone to disrespect, to step forward and to sweep them off of that tower. So excellent read from Origen to also say, you know, we just need to give this one up. Yep. We're not going to open ourselves up for any sort of counterplay, and then in the end, they do trade back up.
Way!
And that's the thing. You look at that, you're like, ah, yes, SK, great job. They got the mid tower, and it is true, it's good. But ultimately, Origen, we're just looking, you know, 10 seconds later. We're fine trading that mid tower for interior top.
Alphari pops the ult hit, Trisha Brush, not quite enough to take him down. As you say, Origen playing the map just as much as SK were playing the map, equalizing that sort of trade in the side lane. And as we come to the 20-minute mark, we do just need to think about exactly how these teams want to play out the rest of the game. Because Origen seem to be happy with a 1-3-1, happy taking it a bit slower, rotate Alphari when you need, but at some point, SK will need to pull the trigger. At some point, SK will have to force, and the question is, where do they force? What do they force around?
Well, hold on.
I think we're okay.
I'm really scared for them.
Who are you scared for?
I'm scared for SK.
Why? Do you think Nukeduck can just take them out?
Yes. Look at Pirean's items. Yeah, that guy's not a champion right now.
You're right, you're right. He's quite far behind.
And that's what's scary for SK in general, is that their composition wants to drive tempo, and they want it to be in the driver's seat at this point in the game. And because they're not, you're looking for SK to prioritize defensively sweeping out their jungle, and then trying to create numbers disadvantages or make big picks and trying to find their foot back into this game. But they have to be so careful.
Whoa, Crownshot! Oh, he's dead!
Yeah.
That's what Nukeduck can do to a man if he oversteps. He gets him out. There's the kill. Now they'll go down towards the Cloud Dragon.
You asked me who I was afraid for. That's exactly what I was afraid of.
But that wasn't Pirean. That was Crownshot.
He could have done that to Pirean.
Okay, well, he did it to Crownshot in at the moment, and Origen will use that advantage to come down towards this bottom side. You can see 4 members near the red buff of SK. They continue to push in the side lanes. Yes, SK are answering, but every time Origen find a pick, every time they find a little bit of damage, they just continue to starve the life out of SK.
And again, it's those paper cuts, but they paper cut you in the same position. I don't know if you've ever got a paper cut underneath your nail, but it hurts. Ooh. And that's what Origen are right now. But eventually, they're just going to rip the nail off.
As a medical professional, it's one of the most painful feelings I've ever heard of. I'll admit. Paper cut under the nail. It's like, nah, incurable. I'm sorry. Make your peace. I want to bring a little bit of seriousness to SK's plight in this game as well, because when we look at their playoff run, when we look at them at 7-7 at the moment, they're trying to fight to get towards, you know, those 9 wins, which is historically the best point to get into playoffs, but they've still got Splice, they've still got Rogue, they've still got Vitality left to play.
And the thing is that you would expect that this game would be hard, possibly the hardest, depending on, you know, who Vitality are starting.
I mean,
I'm going to hold the point.
G2 today as well. They're not the easy opponent they seemed like at the start of the week.
And that's what I was going to bring up. It's the fact that everyone is stepping up. You know, this is a ridiculous strength of schedule for SK. It
really is. Nukeduck continuing just to poke and prod around the side of this fight. Alphari pushing into the tower here as well. The Demolish Pot comes out. That's another tower across the OG. 3,000 gold ahead now. They can just get this vision in once again. Look towards the Baron. OG in a very, very powerful position, and SK found wanting of answers.
This has just got to be so frustrating to play out if you're SK.
Werlyb? I mean, Mithy's caught him out a little bit here. He's going to flash across, trying to catch out Patrik. Patrik pops the spell shield, and Werlyb can't get close enough. Put into the cage. He jumps back onto the back line with the slicing dice, but Mithy eats him up. That's one down, and now SK taking the fight. Kold gonna jump across the wall. It's actually Alphari the one to fall, and Nukeduck jumping in. Selfmade goes golden. It's up to Crownshot. He's opening it up. Kold jumps onto the back line. He gets Crownshot. Mithy's still alive. Patrik's still alive. OG somehow still alive as Nukeduck jump forwards once again. And Pirean has nowhere to go. Can't get away from Kold. And the dunk crew. It's a triple kill for the man in the jungle.
And for a split second, it actually looked good for SK right there. That was kind of the one area on the map that they wanted to teamfight in, which are those close, tight-knit corridors. You have so much line damage with Ezreal and Jayce that if you can get Origen in a choke point, you can start picking them off. But the same thing can be said for Sivir, and ultimately the gold lead spoke for itself.
You can see here, Werlyb realizes he's out of position. The chase comes out from Origen. Werlyb's like, oh, can I get someone? Can I catch someone out? He jumps onto Patrik, but just doesn't have the damage to take down the Sivir quickly enough.
The one thing, though, is that I believe the shutdown bonus goes to Pirean, and that may actually help this Jayce get a foot back into this game, so he's on clock, and he's actually doing the damage that he needs to be doing at this point in the game. And it's right here where you're like, maybe SK have actually got this, but the flash forward from Kold to separate the team fight, and the Nukeduck quickly gets around the corner.
You have to, like, Selfmade was probably 50 extra damage away from killing both Mithy and Patrik in that fight. He could have been the man that his team needed in the moment. You can see Andre there giving a little fist bump across towards.
He's like, not even close.
Easy, easy clap for Origen so far. 5,000 gold ahead now, 25 minutes or 24 minutes in. They've got this Yorick down towards the bottom side. Baron is available for them if they want it, but they don't really need it so far this game.
Well, knowing Origen, they're not going to take it unless it's like 100% guaranteed, because that's the only way SK get back into this game. And with their comp of Jayce and Ezreal, it's actually quite easy to fight around the Baron as long as they have, you know, the vision to step up to it.
So Nukeduck is on a ward here. Selfmade coming in, trying to bait just a little bit. Crownshot on his way down as well, but they're not going to do too much as Nukeduck just jumps away with the distortion. Kold is the one split pushing in the side lane as he has easy access to burrows and can just get himself back towards the team. And I like, Origen will happily do this for the moment, you know, this 1-3-1 or 1-2-1, technically, with Nukeduck just trying to poke and prod down towards the bottom side. But if SK hard engage, hard force onto maybe the Sivir Tahm Kench, hard force onto Kold, they do have an opportunity to strike.
Yeah, but just say what you said. Hard force onto Sivir and Tahm Kench. With what engage? It's a Gragas.
It's a very quick Gragas, though, with the Predator boots.
He's a fast Gragas.
Speedy boy as he tries to get into the fight.
And don't get me wrong, the possibility's there for the outplay. It's just, again, I said it, and I'll say it again, this is so frustrating for SK to play against, because you're trying to, like, Rubik's Cube this game, problem solve, figure it out. How do we actually crack them?
And what would be your solution, Frosk? If you were in SK's mind right now, if you could be a coach for a second and speak into their ear, what would you tell them to do?
Go back to basics. So the first thing that you want to play around is your vision. You want to make sure that you defensively clear out your jungle so you can actually walk in between your lanes in your own map to pick up farm safely, which is what they're doing now, as well as prioritizing the Baron. And then you're just going to trade farm back and forth and try to make high reward, low risk plays. You don't want to over engage into a long team fight right now. You just don't have the items or the stats to back it up. You're looking for picks. Quick hit and run.
Kold has got a litany of burrows around here. Almost looks like an episode of Stranger Things. Like in the second series where he puts all the burrows around. I've been watching that recently, which is why it came to mind, I'll be honest.
It's good.
Yeah?
Kind of weird, but I'll work with you.
That's kind of my, just my way of working generally. Anyway, so SK, vision control, go back to basics. That's what they're doing up towards this top side, but Origen do just have the advantage if they push in as a four-man. You can see Nukeduck is waiting here to see if Selfmade steps out of position. Pirean coming around the backside of the fight, though. Maybe SK can find a pick. Maybe they can find someone out of position here from Origen as they step forward towards the Baron. But Nukeduck does still have that flanking position. Maybe Origen will pull the trigger.
Yeah, and now that they have kind of their triangle vision set up in this area, and because your 3 items are almost complete for Ezreal, SK probably feeling a little bit safer because they can kind of kite out of situations safely. But again, it's moving over into areas first around monster objectives, making sure that they have the vision there so they can at least approach and start using some of their poke tools.
Patrik has teleport here. He was waiting between the inhibitor tower and the first tower, actually. Nukeduck may be caught out because that's a speedy Gragas coming on his way. The double distortion used, Nukeduck will jump back. And now Origen as a 3-man unit will push in, try and get some of this vision cleared out. They don't have any Oracle's lenses up at the moment, but some control wards in their back pockets.
I thought it was very cute that Origen were setting up for the Abyssal Voyage. They basically looked to Nukeduck and said, hey, go look delicious over there. We'll see who we catch coming for the play. SK smartly sent majority of their team, and Origen were just like, it's not worth it. Not in front of Baron. If we ever misplay that, that's exactly how SK walked back into this game.
And I think that's the only criticism I've had of Origen on their meteoric rise, the last 9 games going 7-2, is that sometimes at this point in the game they're a little bit too safe. Like the best teams we've seen in each region tend to be a little bit more willing to take a skirmish, tend to be a little bit more willing to make that big step up play. And Origen, although they play safely, against a team that would take a 50-50, might sometimes lose out. And
there is a conversation that's kind of happening in the wider community. I think Papa Mithy really started it about, you know, what is the optimal way to play League of Legends right now? And it feels like so many teams are going towards that skirmish, risky style, but I'll hold the thought because maybe the trap has been sprung?
Yeah, I mean, Mithy's jumped on here by Pirean. Selfmade there as well as Kold comes in from the side. Patrik there with the on the hunt. Kold forced back, but gets a lot of damage down on Selfmade and gets the boy to sold off. It's a 1-for-1 trade as Yorick and Nukeduck push down towards the bottom lane, though they're going to lose an inhibitor. Maybe even the base. In time, Werlyb came back to respond, but Origen get everything they wanted out of that fight.
Yeah, and that's the 4D chess. It's the fact that you trade jungle for jungle, but as long as you also have the pressure point bottom, Origen now secured their opportunity to step up to the Baron next time. It's going to be pretty difficult to always have a member down there to time with the Super Wave, and this should be a very stock standard. Okay, we wait until the Super Wave pushes in bottom, and then we're going to dance with them around Baron.
Seems to be pretty easy stuff for Origen now. As you say, the Super's pushing in that bot wave, just make it so much easier. A quick look across these gold differentials. Big lead in the top lane for Alphari, about 2,000 gold there. I mean, it's about 6,000 gold across the board for Origen. It's just little bits here and there. 2,000 in the jungle as well, actually. Kold having a very strong performance on the Rek'Sai once again.
Said it. I think Kold's Rek'Sai, pretty great. Allows him to track.
It does,
more
actually.
Of a, what do we call them? Carnivores and herbivores?
Yeah.
He's like an herbivore jungle.
But he's got 5 kills, though.
Well, yeah, but...
It seems pretty carnivorous to me.
He's kind of like picking those up in team fights as like the assassination potential.
Yeah, I often find herbivores are just like, oh, yes, I love vegetables, but now there's something low near me.
Good clarification. I mean his early pathing.
Okay, I agree with you there, Frosk.
Feels like this game was quite quiet for a long time, and then as soon as the map opened up, Origen just used their big brains to outmaneuver SK.
200 IQ plays across the border. Setting up 4 items on the Patrik, on the Sivir now. Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver complete on him. Kold has a few items under his belt as well. I think he's got the GA on that Rek'Sai, and maybe Origen actually just starting up the Baron. You can 3-man it here. That Yorick pushing down towards the bottom side has the teleport, but the easy Baron take, you have to think, for Origen with a Infernal and Mountain backing up their damage. Now, TP comes out away from the fight. Werlyb's low, but Yorick's just going to push the bait. Nukeduck's there as well. I mean, Origen run away, but Origen's just taking the base at the same time. Alphari and Nukeduck are in here. SK ran away from their own base and maybe sacrificed the game. Origen continue their climb up the LEC table with a dominant win over SK. He said they have big brains, Frosk.
It's not flashy, but it puts wins on the board. You can see it. You know, Origen were playing with their food. They were pulling SK around the map. They were trying to bait them into opportunities that they wanted to create. And SK, they just got frustrated. Werlyb, you know, teleports. He's like, let's just start a fight. Let's go for it. He's out of position.
You understand it, but there's a moment where you're like, well, they did this to us last time when we tried to make a fight, and we lost our inhib. And then you make basically the same call again and you lose your base. Like, obviously credit to Origen, they starved the game away from SK. They continue to play this methodical style of League of Legends that just seems to be their best way of winning at the moment, seems to be working incredibly well for them. And they continue their climb up the LEC table. You know, they've got a couple of tough matches left. Rogue tomorrow, Schalke next week, XL next week. Actually, the one I would have said is tough is Schalke, and they're not looking that good at all at the moment. So Origen, if they don't take 3 wins from 3, probably be kicking themselves.
And it's the possibility that Origen could finish with a 4-0, and not just, you know, with G2 continuing to kind of fumble and drop these games. There's a very real opportunity where Origen start to rocket up the standings and show that they are truly the best team in the LEC before playoffs even begins.
Yeah, it definitely could. And I think Origen right now should be looking at second place, and they should be eyeing it hungrily, because although Vitality have an extra win over them, although Splyce have an extra win over... Oh no, actually they tie up with Splyce with this win actually, don't they? Yes. Although Vitality have one extra game over them.
It's Vitality and G2 that are still sitting ahead of them.
But Vitality, if they lose later on today, when they play up against Rogue, that will even out that second place spot. And Origen continue to be the team that, to me, looks the strongest of the chasing pack.
But it's kind of back to that conversation that we were talking about. You know, what is the defining style, the superior, optimal way to play the game? Origen, when I look at them, they almost look like a miniature LCK team. You know, this is the style of League of Legends that everyone praised for so long, whereas G2 seemed to be that, you know, rise of LPL, rise of Invictus Gaming, like scrappy skirmish style. So from a holistic level, super exciting to see the LEC with kind of like so many different styles rise to the top. But now I'm curious, you know, who is going to be able to play both that define themselves as the true champion of the league? Or
if one style just comes out on top in terms of the 1v1 battle, you know, maybe we see a 5v5 between Origen and G2, and we see which style is just superior. Because if Kold tracks Jankos as well as he tracks Selfmade this game, can Jankos actually make a play? Can Jankos do anything in the early game to really set them up for success?
There are so many good signs in the crowd today.
I just don't understand why Andre needed to be put on Cristiano Ronaldo's body. The guy's a beast anyway.
What I was going to say, though, is we were like, you know, Origen this, G2 that. Splyce just had a massive upset, and Vitality have been sitting consistently back here like, guys, what about us?
Yep.
And again, it sounds like such a cop-out, but it feels so good to look at the LEC, and you have so many strong teams with very defined styles this late in the season.
Yeah, and you still have these teams fighting at the bottom of playoffs as well. I think SK is the best example of that.
I'm looking at the top, you're like, but what about the bottom?
Every game matters so much. You have to look at both ends. SK, you know, now sitting at 7 and 8. Who are they fighting up against? Who's next? Schalke's still at 7 and 8. You've got these teams down towards that bottom side really fighting for that 5th, 6th spot. As much as the 2nd spot is important, who gets in is really important to me.
The answer is for Fnatic fans, and that's all majority of the audience cares about. They're like, okay, SK lost a game again.
Yeah.
Fnatic just need to keep winning. Hopefully we can slip past them in the standings.
That's definitely true. Your options for key player of the game are Nukeduck, Kold, and Mithy. Go to @lolesports on Twitter and vote.
You know who's not in that list?
Alphari.
Alphari.
Various.
Interesting. If only I had a detective to tell me why.
Oh, that's an entirely different person. I've actually never met Detective the Vedius or Dr. Medius. They're totally different people. Don't know if they're like twin brother or anything.
For more on Origen's win, let's check in with Frankie and their jungler.
I'm here with Kold, and I'm interested in what you thought of SK's draft, because they were focusing that bottom lane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they put a lot of bans towards Patrik, but I think that's just a strategy that just doesn't really work. He plays pretty much every champion in the game, so I don't think any of us were worried about it. It was just kind of wasted, in my opinion. But I
think he's played something like 13 different champions across this split, actually, so he's not someone you can really test in that way.
Yeah, I mean, he's so young and talented, and he plays the game all the time, so of course he's going to have a big champion pool. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised, but I think teams are just trying to look at different ways to target us and see if we are prepared for it. So I think it was all right to try it, but it just doesn't work.
Do you feel like SK targeted you differently to the last time you met them? Because it looked really like history repeating itself.
I actually think last time we played them, they should have won. They had a big lead on us in the early game, and they just kind of threw the game. I think this time around, we had a better plan, and we knew how to execute the game. So the game was pretty simple. I didn't really feel like they pressured us that much. They were just kind of giving us what we wanted. So.
And we definitely learned that you never try and take a team fight with Origen. Every time they came at you when you were tackling that dragon, it all ended in disaster for SK.
I actually think they should be winning some of the team fights with their comp, but maybe we just outplayed them. I'll have to rewatch it, but usually we had the control and we had the tempo, so we had the setups on the Drakes, and that kind of gave us an advantage in the fights, I think.
Maybe. I sense a little bit of flaming here now, Kold. I do actually need to ask you a question, though, because the thing is about Origen, you're very reliable, you play super safe, and you often win. You've won 8 out of your last 10 games here at the LEC. But can you actually win playoffs without taking any risks?
If we can win playoffs, I mean, we will see. We take one game at a time and we play our style, and I think no other team in the league plays the way we do. You say super safe. I think we are more calculated and we like to play smart. Some of the other teams doesn't like to play that smart, hint at a certain top team. but that is what it is. So this is just the way we play, and I think it works for us.
Well, I love a gang of geeks, and I think Origen just might fit the bill. But let's head back to Alex and the analysts, because I know they're gagging to break that one down.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Frankie, there with Kold. So, gentlemen, we've got so much to cover. What a game, what a result. And I think I really like that Kold corrected it. It's like, I don't consider it safe. I consider it restrained. I consider it calculated, I think was the word he used. Does that sound about right? Does that resonate with you? Clinical. Some would say.
Yeah, I think that this was typical Origen, what we saw. They are a team, we talked about it at the very beginning of the day, where when they make plays, they're kind of looking for those plays that have a 70–80% chance of success. If it's 50–50, they don't feel the need to take the risk, which is why their games seem a little bit slower. But they did some really cool stuff this game, which we're going to talk a little bit later on about.
Absolutely. I want to start at the very beginning. Is that Sound of Music? I think it is. Anyway, let's look at those picks and bans, amazing, because your eyebrows were raised before a single second of gameplay happened.
So I actually thought that SK targeted Origen in the right manner. I would have picked a strong 4-1-2 as they did. Basically, Ezreal, Jayce, Gragas, Braum, you have a lot of contests, you have a lot of ability to basically like create space for you and your team. And Origen so far has shown like almost like inability to play the 1-3-1 properly, which we're going to come back to later. So it's actually the right way to attack them, but it was the wrong execution given the comp.
So for me in this draft, I actually like the fact that I feel SK had a lot of early game options so they could leverage, and I think that's the best way to attack Origen, because when they make these random mistakes in the early game where they just die and they fall behind, as we talked about earlier, they're not the team that will make those gambles. So if you can get a strong arm on the game very early, then it becomes difficult for Origen to find ways back in. And I felt like when you draft things like a renekton and you have a Jayce, you actually have a couple of side lanes that you can play around. But as Kold said in the interview, we didn't really see much pressure coming out from SK in the other game.
Right idea, wrong execution. That's the summary of the draft? Love it.
I would say so.
And actually, I was learning an awful lot. I just sat here with VODS and Amazing, and I watched Amazing teach VODS about League. Of course, I'm included in that list, bro. I'm not sitting there like, oh, you didn't know?
Analyst.
Sorry, remind me of your prediction this game.
I'm 0-3 today. I'm 0-3.
No, but all seriousness, it was specific to jungling, which I'm not going to fault you for not having your head around. But you were praising the route that Kold was taking, and I'd love you to explain it for the
So basically, the route that Kold was taking was basically a controlled route where you're greeding on one side, you're basically taking as many camps as possible, so then you can spend longer time on the opposite side because you don't have to return to the same side as fast again because the camps are not respawning yet. So basically, you don't have any camps to take. On that side, you can spend more time on the other side and basically slow down the game and allow your bot lane especially to just control the pace of the game too, because you're going to sit around them for longer. And I think that helps Origen in general because you want to open up Mithy, you want to allow him to basically just play the game controlled and allow him to roam and open up space later on in the game. That's something they did where they went for crabs, especially on level 6, level 7, when Mithy was actually comfortable getting out of lane phase.
And this gives me a perfect opportunity to talk a little bit about Alphari here, because what you talked about is that the jungler pretty much didn't spend any time around the top side of the map. He did a very greedy kit and allowed him to invest a lot more towards the bot side. And the renekton into the Yorick matchup is heavily favored for the renekton early on. So Alphari, in a matchup where he had no support, in a matchup that he's losing, actually ended up coming out ahead in that 1 versus 1. And actually did very well for himself.
He certainly did, and he was a big part of how that game ended. And of course, we'll touch on that.
But that was one of the 3 OP players? I don't remember that being a thing. No, but obviously this team fight is going, like this is basically a compilation of Nukeduck's kind of solo kills, where he looks for the opportunities as LeBlanc, as he's supposed to, and he basically showcases what the champion can actually do. Every time he sits in a bush, he has a pink bot behind him, basically allowing himself to be in a secret spot where none of the enemy players can predict where he is, and then he goes for the assassination.
And it's almost like Nukeduck heard me say that he doesn't make plays or take gambles, and then he locks in LeBlanc, and then he has a fantastic game overall. You got to give credit to the man. He helped build a lot of the early game leads for Origen at the first part of the map, and I think that he definitely had a great game overall.
Yeah, and we do actually have that awesome team fight that really did seal the deal. It was the win for Origen around that Mountain Drake, and we can watch that one more time. Can you just walk me through how this, because it looked so good for SK.
So the main issue I have with this fight is it's like SK is trying to force something with no real objective to play around it. Origen are kind of in a better position to react to it. Alphari is slightly out of position coming off the flank, but the key thing to note here is we wanted to highlight how good SK is on a mechanical individual level, and keep your eyes on Gragas, keep your eyes on the Selfmade. He almost wins this fight single-handedly. And if he just had a little bit more damage, if those health bars had been a little bit lower, this could have swung the entire game in favor of SK. And just due to some very good play from the side of Origen and just having that slight mechanical advantage over their opposition allows them to come out on top. But this is the thing about SK that you can never really predict or control.
Just look at that picture, though. Now that I'm seeing it in the back, that's actually intense.
It's a whole lot of love. And indeed, you know, the topic of the pre-match was Alphari and Nukeduck. And actually, that's where this conversation is going to be coming to a conclusion, because you threw a word out that neither of us were familiar with. Overloading. Can you give us all a tutorial?
Yeah, it is a concept where basically you have two side laners join on one side and basically then try to kill the enemy side laner or basically try to take the turret. What that does is basically evades team fights you don't want to take, and you basically make the game more individualistic, where you have the 1v1 matchups, you have the 2v2 matchups, and then you're basically playing a really, really small map instead of big map where basically enemy can contest you around objectives that you're not ready to take yet. So we see this multiple times. We see Origen, Kold, Mithy, Patrik taking vision out of the Nashor. Meanwhile, the duo of Yorick and LeBlanc are pressuring out the bot side of the map, and that means that anytime they basically get to hit turrets, they will take it instantly. And that's how they also ended the game in the end, where Nukeduck and Alphari basically together looked for the play, and we see it now.
Exactly, Maurice. And I love the fact that the moment SK tried to force something, OG immediately punished on the other side. And I think what's really cool for fans, especially at home, is people are so used to like 1-4, 1-3-1. This is effectively a 2-3 strategy, right? 2-3. And it's something that's not commonly seen because the risks you run is you are leaving potentially your 3-man against the 4-man. And if they win that fight, maybe they convert it into a Baron, maybe they convert it into something big.
It has to be quick, amazing.
Yeah, it has to be really quick, because otherwise it happens what Veddy just said, where they can just force the Nash, and if they force the Nash, you're stuck in a position where you have to utilize your TPs or you have to utilize basically your tempo completely to get back to the Nashor, and that can backfire in a lot of cases. But in this case, it obviously worked out pretty well.
And the execution was just perfect as well, because you look at the vision, you look at how they set everything up, everything was done perfectly for Origen, and for anyone wanting to learn more, I would highly recommend you watch this game again.
No, absolutely, yeah. Go ahead, rewind it, watch it, because your key player of the game was Nukeduck. 55% of the votes, though. It was a toss-up, but Nukeduck does take it with some sexy LeBlanc play and a big win for Origen. That is it for us now. We're going to be going ahead and taking a break, because coming up next, Vitality look to get one step closer to second place as they face off against Rogue. Don't you go anywhere.